Oops, I have to swap my screen out. I knew that. Kind of helps to have the correct window displayed, I suppose. Yeah, let's try this one. How you guys doing? Hopefully you can see and everything. For some reason I don't have a camera, so I'm just going to go double check that, make sure it's up and running. There is pretty much no light above me though, so let me fix that real quick. Alright, imagine that. Light. Cool. Okay, I think everything's pretty alright. I'll just sharpen that up slightly. It looks a little hazy. It's alright. Okay, so now you guys can't see me yet, but I'm going to try to get you to see me here. Hopefully you want to. Let's try this. Something's not working though. I have got no camera, folks. I don't know why. Let's just skip around, try the NVIDIA. There we go. Okay, and then I will drag that over so I can see what's going on. Looks okay, I think. Everything's good to go. Just making sure everything's working, including the audio, I guess, for the most part. And now I'm just going to make sure my little broadcast is actually going out to the entire world, because I know everybody in the world is watching right now. I'm just going to mute this. There we go. And evidently it is working. So I've got the chat up as well. I'm going to put yo. There we go. If you guys are watching, don't be afraid to say hello. And let me just select the stream to make sure it's the right one. And cool. All right, so with that, I'm just gonna start making some junk here. Just gonna grab like a default project here, sphere. I got my symmetry turned on. And I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's the fun of this kind of thing, in my opinion, when I'm not forced to do something a certain way. Not that I'm ever pretty much forced to do anything, am I? Okay, so I'm going to just make a couple little mounds here, turn this around, and kind of do the same thing kind of here instead. And I've got these 4 little mounds here. Looking from the side, I'm going to make kind of a line so I know where this happens. No dirty, weird comments, guys. Just kidding. And, okay, that's a good place to start. You're wondering, what can it be? What can it be? Even I don't know. Okay, so let's just mask out this here. It's gonna get weird. And I'm gonna swap my mask out. Grab my move brush here. Enlarge all this more and just kind of pull out. No, that is not what you think they are. I don't remember if you can do a mirror to the back. I'm sure, yeah, you can. It's not important. This is going to be very organic in the end anyway. So these guys are going to get the same treatment. We're going to mask and swap the mask there with our move tool. Pretty much, let's make that slightly bigger again. Pull these this way. Essentially the same thing here. And so now we have this really crispy, unfortunately very crispy stuff going on there, and this is something a lot of people who try to use ZBrush get really lost on and don't know what to do about. I'm just going to jump into geometry here. You can divide this thing up all you want right now, but the best way to where you don't have to keep dividing and keep changing and keep realigning everything is just jump into Dynamesh and turn it off and turn it on, and then you'll have most of your stuff smoothed out. You can come back in here using your smoothing brush here and just kind of clean that up however it needs to be done. And eventually we will get into remeshing, which is different. The Z remesher will actually give us geometry that creates good topology. But we're not going to do that just yet. And I need to make sure that I don't get too much detail going before I go back and do that, because that will be basically creating our base mesh for us. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of creating some crazy base mesh here. And I think I'm going to mask this again. And if we don't even have to keep pulling out from this if we don't want to, we can actually bring in another piece of geometry. I can even show you how that's done. If we wanted to, we just jump into the subtool menu. We can click append. And I'm just going to bring like a cylinder in here. And you're like, well, why in the world would you do that? And we got to make sure also we are selecting the cylinder. And I'm going to size it and move it down. Pull this over here. Not going to get into the Z modeler tool, but this is actually a pretty cool way of doing things. Something kind of like that. I guess pull it from the front over a little. Cool. And then once that's down, we come back into the draw mode, and I'm going to make 4 of these to start with. So let's just have that selected. We click duplicate. I'm going to move this over. Basically the same, not perfect or exact. And then I'm going to grab this one. I think I'm going to go ahead and merge these down. Let me think. This is where I get kind of screw myself over at times. So what I'm going to do is actually just duplicate this one singly again and then pull it over. Oop, you got to duplicate it. You got to keep them duplicated. And we're going to grab this one at the bottom, duplicate it. And when we'll move that one back, just make sure I'm where I need to be. There we go, good enough. Something like this. And you better lay down that bed instead of jumping up on my desk, please. There we go. That cat listened to me. I cannot believe it. I can't not believe it. And now we're going to duplicate one more time and pull this one over this way. And we'll have essentially this, somewhat symmetrical figure. I know you're still wondering what in the heck is this dude doing, but I do have kind of a plan at the moment. We're going to jump back to this particular piece, and I'm going to mask off this top. Just go ahead and make my brush a little bigger and just mask the top. I probably should have done that from a better position, but something about like that. Let's see if it's pretty much all the way. Yep. And I'm going to swap my mask out, and then I'm going to take my inflate tool, and if I can find it right here, bring our size way up, and then with that there, I'm just going to pull this all out really weird and ugly. And we can, of course, smooth it if we want to. It's not necessary because all this is going to be weird and ugly in the end, but right now it's symmetrical. Now, because we stretched these polygons out enough, I'm going to go back in here and have to re-dynamesh it again so that if you look at this as a cage here, you can see these are starting to get stretched out. It's fine. They're not at a horrible place right now, but I'm going to want to re-dynamesh those again so that they don't get too stretched. And you'll see what I mean. It'll actually make new geometry to come up with that. So I just control click like I'm going to use my mask, but on a blank spot, and it will re-dynamesh everything, evening out all of that stuff. And if we want to, we can bring the resolution up and re-dynamesh again. It'll actually dense up that that resolution the same way, but we don't need to do that right now. So now we're going to come back into this subtool, and we have these weird chunky bits here. Normally I would probably try to shape these first, so let me just we can use anything really. Make sure we turn off that frame again. I'm going to come down into, let's say, this front one here. And I believe we still do have our symmetry available here. Let me make sure. Does not look like it, so we just press X. And now anything we do on this side, as long as it is, and you know what? We are going to have to mesh these down probably. So let's just go ahead and grab this one. And we're going to go ahead now and merge down. And it will put this one and this one on the same level. And we're going to take that one now that's selected and merge down as well. And then we're going to take that final one here. So those are merged together here. So we're going to take those two, merge those down. Yep. And then we're going to take that final one there, merge down. And now all four of these are on the same level. So anything we do here is going to come across, you know, through all of it, because it's all on kind of like, if you think of this as the same level maybe, you know. And I'm just going to kind of futz these around a little bit. Now they're not connected to this big part yet. That will happen in a second. So I'm going to still smooth this down a bit, just kind of getting some of that shape sort of beaten down before we get into it. There we go. Okay, so good enough. Let's go ahead and merge the big part. We got to turn that one back on, down into the lower parts, and we'll say yeah. And then we'll come down here to our Dynamesh again, and we will re-Dynamesh, and it will include all this together. That way when we smooth now, they actually smooth really nicely together. Now you can see my resolution is probably too high, because it's taking a long time to smooth. I'm not getting a lot of effect out of it. So we can just knock this resolution back to like 1 something, and it will now let me smooth a little easier. I'm just going to knock it back even farther, and everything goes faster. When we put on that fill here, you can see I'm just going to pull that back now to 48, and now we've got a much more simpler mesh. And I'm doing that just to make the smoothing and all the other stuff a lot easier to do for the machine until we get into detail, because you don't need to have all that detail in your computer chugging away too much until it absolutely needs to be. Alright, so let's do something cool. Let's take this dude. I'm going to turn that frame off now. That's really just to demonstrate that for you guys. Frame that out, zoom out a little bit. And if anybody's watching, just say hello. I'm not even sure that we're broadcasting. I think we are, but I don't see any stats or anybody watching, which is kind of different. Normally that's not the case. I do have the correct stream selected, don't I? Oops. Not sure what we're going for here. I think that is the correct one. Cool. It says we're working, so I'm just going to go with it. All right, so with this, it kind of looks like, oh yeah, okay, so I got to remember which is my front and back. I use this little icon up here to tell me that. And now I'm going to do probably something crazier. Let's go ahead and make our brush really big, and I'm going to start inflating the top. Whoops, not the whole thing, folks. Let's probably want to mask it, I guess. So we can just kind of pull that down again, kind of like so. And then I will swap the mask out. And now we will grow this up quite a bit. Going to frame up, zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to start pulling this around a bit. So let's grab our move tool, make this a bit smaller. And I'm just going to start giving more of a interesting shape, I think. You're like, what is this? And it's just something I was thinking about and then thinking about earlier a little bit. Stuff just pops in your mind sometimes when you're sitting on the toilet. No, I'm kidding. When you're just, you know, sitting on the toilet. Okay, cool. So there's that. We can adjust these more and so on. I'm going to come back here and change this 100 times, I guarantee you. So we're going to redynamesh just so things are more even. A couple of times there. And that's looking cool. I'm not going to give this thing any kind of face. So that's different. Let's go ahead and up our resolution just slightly and start giving a little bit of shaping. Now, one of my favorite brushes to kind of mark stuff out is the damn standard brush right here. And that's, no, I'm not cussing. It's just what it's called. And I think what I want to do before that is just kind of come up here and kind of hack away at this thing a bit. Start giving it some, what is going on that I'm not having any effect? There we go. Kind of have to hold down your Alt key to use the reverse function. So I'm just kind of hacking into this a bit to scoop this out a little more. So it's not so jiffy pop. Alright, cool. If you guys are learning anything, cool. If you want to learn stuff, I'm always willing to teach people how to do things. So feel free to ask me about that. Don't think we have any viewers, which is a little weird. Greg said he was going to jump on, and I'm not seeing that. In fact, my stats don't show even a 0 at this point. You just kind of wonder if I can check how this goes. Yeah, it says it's on. It says it's watching, 3 watching. So for some reason I don't have anything coming in. Oh, there's Sloth Cat. Something was not showing though on my stream though. So hey, how's it going? Sorry to not see or acknowledge you there. I'm just playing here, knocking something out. Now you want to make sure you do not have too much detail at this point because we are going to remesh this a number of times. So if you look, when you dynamesh, you're just going to get this sort of grid pattern across pretty much everything. And when you go down, I'm going to turn dynamesh off and I come down here to my Z remesher. Now we're going to get a remeshing of this that actually wraps around the model like retopology does. And however high you set this is going to be kind of how your base mesh is laid out, or how big the polygons are initially, kind of like your base polygon size. How's it going, Ron? So I'm going to push remesher just at the level that it's on, and it's going to sit here and go through, well, it should be anyway, going through its remeshing process. It looks like it's a little frozen here. Give it just a second. There it goes at the top. So now you can see we have a bigger mesh here, but also you see the path it takes around these legs is a lot more like we are going to want it to be. We're not quite there, but we're closer. So I'm just going to knock that down again, a little more, do it again, and you can kind of see that we've got this sort of beginning to wrap around the legs and stuff like that. What I like to do, turn off that grid for now, is to come in and just kind of lay out a couple of lines that kind of make almost like boundaries, if you will. So this is just going to kind of come in here and make kind of like a ribbed kind of line here, maybe down in the back like this. And by doing this, you're like, well, why? Well, by doing this, I'm actually creating kind of a boundary here. And when we remesh this again, it's actually going to remesh that kind of with that in mind. So if you watch again here, now it'll start to include this. I'm going to just remesh it a couple times it's not gonna, it should keep the same count. But you can see it starts to refine kind of where I've put this. And that's a really good thing because our lines get closer and closer to their position we're going to want it in when they are, you know, in their final form. Okay, so we can remesh that again here. But you really don't want to go back and forth a lot, remeshing and then dynameshing after that, because if you dynamesh now, we're basically destroying all of the remeshing we've done, which is fine, but that's what you'll eventually create, is a mess. But you do want to, at some point, commit to this base mesh so that in the end, and you don't have to do it this way. I actually retopologize manually all the time. I like it, which is not something a lot of people say. But when you retopologize this manually, you know, you'll have that base mesh however you want. If you do it this way, you can actually save the low res mesh like we're making right here and kick that out as the base mesh. And then you take your high res mesh after all your sculpting and stuff and export that out, and you can use this low res mesh as the actual model and the high res mesh as the detail that's projected onto it. Crazy. It's a really cool process. Okay, so what I'm gonna do maybe is make some knee-ish like protrusions, kind of the fronts here. This is gonna be a really weird character, I warn you guys. Kind of like a fantasy, you know, kind of Dark Crystal meets something way grosser. Kind of a, you know, just like a forest inhabitant of some kind, you know, like a background kind of forest inhabitant, possibly. So I'm going to pull a couple of some kind of striation kind of things, you know, tendons or something happening in here. Perhaps. That works. I don't know what's going on with any of that. And just, you know, start mapping stuff out, you know, like a little bit of general shapes that you know are probably going to be in here. And then getting around to getting it closer and closer to a form that is, you know, not the final form, but you know, you're honing all the time. So now we just did this. I'm going to go ahead, frame this up, zoom out a little bit, and we're going to remesh this again so you can see kind of what is going on with the framing now. So we have a little more leg wrap there. You know, this is sticking better. These are kind of following that direction as we would want that, you know, to be. I think I'm giving this kind of like a butt crack kind of looking line there. So we'll just start worrying about, you know, larger details. I'm not going to call this so much a detail, but this is more of a secondary kind of form, I guess. So I'm not hating this, so that's a good thing. I'm not going to give it a face, even though it kind of feels like there would be one somewhere around here. Just kind of give these a little more definition. And then we're going to divide it. And the nice thing is we'll keep this base mesh because it's just a natural base, because we're just subdividing on top of it. We're not actually going to destroy this if we can help it. And if we do, I have ways around it. Don't worry. You know, it's just part of the process. Things happen. So I roll with it all because I have ways to get out of it if I screw up. And I think that's probably the best thing you can teach yourself. How do you, you know, what skills you have to collect, you know, to pick up the pieces after you ruin it all. That's something I'd look for in an employee for sure. You know, how are you good at not covering up your mistakes, fixing them? You know, how good are you at doing that? Because we all make mistakes. Don't lie and say you don't. You know, because ain't nobody gonna believe that crap. Okay, so let's get that. Zoomed out here. We're going to remesh again. And when we do, we're going to start to be able to refine these little toe things again. So I'm just going to run that again. There we go. And you can see this starts to sort of, it's shifting the polygons. If we look at the toes now, we're going to start to get these sort of triangular kind of areas that'll start coming in there. So that's good. I'm trying to think if there's anything large that I need to include in this shape yet, and I don't think so. I could create a couple of hollowed out areas or something underneath here, maybe like something like this, you know, maybe something like that. Just kind of increase the tension of these sort of tendony like areas. I think that's kind of a cool look in general. I'm not sure what's happening here, so I don't want to go on and mess with something too much that may impact it in a negative way, but now I'm trying to reserve, you know, some stuff there. But when we run this again, it'll start to round out those holes. You can see right here now how those are formed around, and I do it a couple more times just to kind of help. And yes, it's changing color because it's changing its polygroups. It's just one polygroup now, but that's kind of where this is going. Cool. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything, or if you want to like, subscribe, please do that. It does help my stats, which does a lot for stuff that's important. Okay, so I'm going to kind of start digging into that a little more because I do want to keep this defined. It's trying to get away from it, so let's just kind of go back and try to have it help. Now the nice thing is when we go and subdivide this one or two times, we get a whole lot more polygons, you can see there, but we still have the base layer right here. So we'll keep that as long as I can, hopefully throughout. And that way I might not have to actually go in and retopologize this manually later. But as we now go and define things like this, and then go back and remesh it again, it will refine it and define it even more with this higher resolution mesh. You know, you get more and more detail as you go. You can smooth, whatever we need to do. And then it will be affecting in reverse the base mesh to make it more accurate as well. So it's kind of cool how it all works out. So I'm just going to keep playing. I don't know even what this is. It's not broccoli, I promise. Hopefully it doesn't look too much like broccoli. I was just going to say that. I'll bet you somebody's saying. Let's frame that up. Okay, so cool. And let's kind of start refining those sort of toe-ish areas here a little bit. I'm just going to make these splits kind of back where they were. If they're not perfect, it's all right, because I'm just making decisions kind of as I go. What's going to be what. Not sure what's happening on the bottoms, but let's go ahead and make like a little pad or a circle or something happening in there, like maybe like that. I'm going to start pulling these toe separations out as well. You know, camels have these, by the way. Anyway, moving on from that. Cool, let's just move these around. And okay, cool. All right, what are you guys doing? All right, cool, so let's just frame it out. Look at it now. I think that my front is this side without the butt. So cool. And I'm going to remesh again, and it'll start to whoops, what did we do? We want to remesh with a higher topology here. So let's just we can double this actually, and now we can remesh, and we're going to get more, and it's going to take a little longer to do, but it is going to get our forms better. If we come back down, oh, it looks like we lost the lower resolution. Oh Lord. Okay, so I'm going to wind up having to do this anyway, but we can also pull this down, take the double off, drop this down to, you know, whatever we want, and run it again. However you want. You can go back and forth for days with it. You can see here. There's our lower resolution now. And now we can redivide from there and still have that lower resolution look. So you just got to be careful. Once you get detail in here, you got to leave it, or you're going to be hand retopologizing it completely, which I don't mind doing, as I said. So I'll probably wind up screwing this up and have to do that anyway. It just happens a lot. It's totally cool. All right, so now I'm just going to kind of start, working like forms out more as we get stuff in here. I don't know exactly what it's going to be or how they're going to look. So I'm just playing a bit. You can also use the sculptress mode, which, is really cool, but I don't use it as much as I thought I would because it adds a lot of geometry, and it does kind of mess with the topology if you're trying to maintain that in a specific way. So, which I don't like having limits, so I may use it anyway and just have to eat the fact that I've messed up the topology. And I'll just go back and do it in Blender, actually using a great plugin called Retopo Flow that I love to use. Just makes that process actually enjoyable. And I don't think I'd ever say that about retopologizing ever. Okay, so I'm going to pull up some initial skin folds here. Something that gets us in the right direction. Being careful not to overdo it or cartoonize too much, because even though this looks like a kind of a Pokemon kind of cartoony thing, that's really not what I'm going for. So it will be more realistic once I get to that point. That's at a 2 division. We can go even higher and higher. I mean, I usually take things up to about a 6 or 7, and that's more than enough ever, honestly, in my case anyway, to do what I need to do. And that is levels of subdivision I'm talking about when I say that number. Okay, let's just frame this out, kind of take a look here. I kind of want that top to be much more gross and blobby eventually. Just kind of pull that out here. Okay, cool. So I'm going to subdivide a few more times here now and start maybe even one more time and really start throwing in some kind of secondary, tertiary forms there. So let's see what you got here. This in Blender, well, it depends. This only sculpts. There's no animation. If you want to learn all of it, I'd say stay with Blender, but I will also say for sculpting, this is the cream of the crop. This is everything you've ever wanted in sculpting. Now, Blender sculpting has gotten super, super better. And you do work a little differently in it. So I have to kind of go back and forth between, because I go back and forth between so many programs. It's one of those things I have to kind of remind myself, oh, nope, you can't do that in here. That tool is called this, and that does this way. So I do go bouncing back and forth a little bit that way. But it's really good. It just depends on what you're looking for. This is definitely the best, but Blender is very good, and Blender doesn't cost anything, so that's probably one of the best reasons to try Blender, or to do it in Blender. I love Blender. I hated Blender, honestly, for years, because it just felt like a hobby program to me. I hated the right-click problem. And when they sorted that out, 2.8, I tried it very reluctantly and was kind of blown away how quickly it seemed like things just went when I was modeling and all that. And so I said, I'll give this a little more of a go. And it's funny because I was a Maya user for about 20 years or something like that at that point. And I never opened Maya ever again, literally from that day. And it's something that I never would work with anything else. And I never definitely would work with Blender, and Blender blew me away enough that I never even opened Maya again. That's saying something in my opinion. For one, Blender, yes, you had to use plugins to get some functionality, but guess what? Or add-ons, I should say. But they are so easy and so good, it's totally worth it. It's not like, oh yeah, but I don't want to have to use these add-on things and plugins and stuff just to make it work. Yeah, you do. And I didn't think I did, but yes, I'm very happy that I did do that. Blender blow you enough. Whoa, what? I don't understand. It blew me away. I know that. Not sure what that means exactly. I mean, I can make stuff up of what that means all day long. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sure you typed that exactly the way you meant to, though. Okay. Cool. Okay, so there's some wrinklage there, some folds, some larger folds. And, you know, I'm going to start blotifying kind of this top piece. I'm going to start off symmetrically and then be asymmetric about it eventually, but not just yet. So just kind of come in here and just chunk up some stuff on here just to get this a little messed up. Don't want this nice or anything. Bye butt. And smooth it just slightly. I don't want to overdo the smoothing either. I think there's some nice organic things that come from, you know, the lack of smoothness. When I do musculature, I use this square brush like this because there's just something about the way it creates the kind of underlying striations of muscles and stuff that looks really good. If I use it right even now, just take this down to about here. I'm going to straighten this out some, frame it up, straighten that up, and kind of start doing this kind of thing. That striated look right there is just amazing for muscles. So, depending, you know, what you're doing with it. Over smoothing right now on purpose, just to kind of knock some of those corners off. Cool. Okay, so let's just, I'm going to beef up a few of these wrinkles, folds or whatever in a couple of places where they would maybe fatten out just a little bit. And I think that's going all right. Okay, I'm going to puff out the center of this just a little bit. It's probably looking way too cuter than I planned that to look for sure, but all that will not be a problem shortly. Okay, cool. Let's get that happening. I'm not making a mushroom. This is definitely not that. Guys have any comments, questions, please let me know. Say something or whatever, or don't. Just kind of coming up here now and messing some stuff up on purpose. You have to kind of point that out, otherwise people think you mess stuff up. Okay, that's looking relatively okay. Gonna start pulling this now toward the front. This is just the art in it right now. This is all by just what I think looks good. Okay. Cool. All right. Okay, cool. So let me go back here and show you now back on level 1. If you can remember, this is our base mesh for the moment. Didn't want you guys to forget that. And so now I'm going to make some decisions on anything else that's larger or not. I'm going to do some really knotty, I think, kind of knee areas on this. I've smoothed them out quite a lot at this point, but I think I want to kind of go in and chunk these back out quite a bit. You guys watching, have any of you ever used ZBrush at all? Can't three out all tried. Yeah, no, this is definitely not modeling. I mean, sculpting, and not to correct you, but yeah, sculpting is definitely its own thing, because modeling and sculpting, I do a lot of modeling as well, but they are two different beasts entirely. But the sculpting, I use it almost like a meditation sometimes. I don't do it as regularly as I really should be. I've got a lot of figures I need to continue with, finish. I sell on like the Reallusion um, website recently, and all this kind of stuff. This will be one of the first like probably creatures I think I've done for them, other than humanoid. So let's see. I think I'm gonna do some cool sort of stuff happening here. Now I do have some cool brushes that save a lot of time for certain things, but I also really like to just straight out um, hand model everything. I'm kind of a you call that sadist, or the other one, a masochist when it comes to that kind of thing. So I'm just kind of filling in stuff. Let's go ahead and take another look from out here. I think he's looking kind of cool. This was the sort of butt cracky area. I'm doing this mainly to show where the back of this thing is. And I'm trying to stay away from too much detail. I think it's pretty good at the moment. I probably could start adding some detail. So I'm going to jump this up to at least a level 5. See what I can manage with a couple of my cool brushes. I'm going to open up here. Let's just have a look. What do I got? I really enjoy these guys, and this in particular, this is one of my favorite skin brushes, and it's not skin. Pardon me. It is creature skin. So one of them, and I have a bunch of those, but this particular one I really dig. It's great for softer, wrinklier parts, and if I am careful enough and don't overuse it, you can get a really good look here. And they do save a lot of time, because you are getting everything you want done with one swipe for the most part, as long as you're using it correctly, using it at the right pressure. I mean, like any paintbrush. So man, I'm gonna have a coughing fit, of course, only on the live stream. It's just how that goes. So little bits there in the center. Could put a little around there. I think that is working fine. And then now maybe some heavier kind of stuff coming this way. I'm just trying to make sure I don't have very similar stuff happening in a lot of places. So I'm going to pull some of this up like so. And this also sometimes gets wiped out, because I'll do stuff like this to kind of test what something's going to look like later. Excuse me. And then I'll go back and sometimes pull that off and change whatever my idea was. So let's have a look now. I think that's coming along okay. It is really warm in here. Alright, so cool. Maybe work some of this just with the kind of a skin vibe there. elephant, almost like skin. I think that's looking kind of nice, actually. And the insides too, then. Don't forget to cross your wrinkles, because they look good when you do that. They naturally cross. So, if you guys are liking what you see, let me know. I do appreciate the praise. No, I appreciate the input, commentary, and so on. A little crisscross. Make a jump. Crisscross and make you. You guys remember that old song, I'm sure? Hope not. I don't want to remember it. Okay, so here and here. Gotta be careful I'm not overdoing it, but when I get warm, I just get agitated, and then I start not thinking about what I'm doing. Could we possibly make it cooler? Is that possible? My trusty assistant. Okay. So, I think that's working out okay. But yeah, I get a little... I'm not a fan of warmth. Unless, of course, it's freezing, and then I'm a big fan of it. So... Probably a lot of women I've dated will tell you the same thing. Nope, he's not a fan of warmth. Just kidding. Okay, looking alright. Is it? I appreciate that. Trying not to overdo. It's the strategically placed wrinkles that are the best. That's what Joan Collins used to say. I have no idea. Alright, cool. So there is this. Just trying to, like I said, resist the temptation to make everything have the same textures. It's because I already have this brush in my hand that I'm wanting to overuse it. Let's put a couple of these up there at least. Crisscross. You can see how that crisscrossing really makes a huge difference in the realism of said wrinkles. I'm going to bring my damn standard back in here. Knock that down a little bit. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it is really a thing, you know, that some people, you know, either you get it or you don't, I guess. I feel like I can pretty much teach anything to anyone. I, you know, taught a lot of classes on special effects makeup and all that, because that's what I used to do primarily. And then, you know, also, I taught at the university, you know, I was a film, the film professor at university, and so teaching is one of those things. I taught magic. I mean, of course, I performed magic, but I have taught it as well. Just undo those and do one sweep. There we go. Cool. And then maybe a little more detail here. Let's just get situated and framed back up. It's not too bad. I appreciate the compliment though. A few of these kind of coming up a bit heavier, single sculptural kind of wrinkles. That's alright. My cat is very angry that I'm not going to bed yet, I guess. She gets very vocal when I talk on the live stream for some reason. I think she just doesn't like me talking, so could be. They're very fickle. I was talking to somebody about that just last night. Cats do what they want. They want to be petted, but no, they don't. Okay, so cool. Let's just have a look at a few things. I'm thinking I could do these manually, I suppose. Whoops. Little of this and that. And looking okay. A little bit of break up around these kneecaps, if that's what they are. These are kind of cool, but I need to really kind of do something better here. Let's go ahead and open up. And I got some HR Giger brushes that might actually be cool to use in there. One in particular I know might be really nice. These guys here. Perhaps this one. Just lay that sucker in there like that, but let's make it a little bigger. Maybe like this, use a little less pressure. And something like that. That's pretty cool. Kind of feels like it comes out and grows a bit into the side there. I think that works. Zoom that back. Those might be a little intense, but I think they do look pretty good. Let's go find some more goodies. And I got to make sure that I don't put detail everywhere, because where the detail is concentrated is where you're going to look most. And people tend to go hog wild with the detail and put it everywhere, and that's great, but your eye doesn't know what to focus on. So it's very important that you do not do it that way, if you can. Let's try. I don't know if I want any of these. I might go back to my trusty skins folder over here again and get something a bit bumpy / scaly now. Maybe even this. Just kind of feel that out. You gotta be careful because some of these guys are a bit intense. There we go. That's looking pretty good. And this is a different texture altogether. It's got kind of a lizardy, turtley kind of feel to it, and I think this thing has that kind of feel to it as well. What have we been going for here now? Like 30 minutes? 53 minutes, but yeah, all of this from scratch from a single ball in 53 minutes. Not tooting my own horn, but I'm just showing, yes, it can be done like that. Granted, it's a walking ball of broccoli, but you know, that's what I wanted. Okay. I would never have said that as a kid, though. Of course, broccoli when I was a kid were trees. We were giants eating trees. It was one of my favorite things about being a kid. Not eating my broccoli, but finding ways to make it entertaining, edible, tolerable, happy. Yeah, those memories I do like. So I'm just bringing this texture down a little farther in those mid pieces that kind of come down there. I think that's working out pretty good for it. Now the belly, I kind of want to do something a bit like, you guys know what a horny toad is? Their stomachs. They're these tiny little fine kind of scales. Let's see what happens here. And those are a little bit intense. I might have to pull these out. Yeah, more like that for sure. And even though this texture seems so small and subtle, it makes a difference when it's colored, when the lights are on it, you know, kind of hitting it like in a cross light, you know, lit way. And one's looking really good. And I'm just going to try and really keep this just on the belly. So as, you know, this transitions from this harsher skin to the belly, we kind of get the feeling that it's softer. And I want to do some really nasty, crusty stuff here now on the feet. Normally I do this stuff a lot of the time manually. You know, I'll just go in and I'll make every single wrinkle and crack or whatever myself. Sometimes I don't necessarily do that. Those are veins, so let's stay away from that for now. And let's go on our back of our light box and see we got some cracky stuff. There may be, I have some really good wood stuff that you'd think, well, why would you want to use that? Well, it works really good, but yeah, this is looking pretty good too, though. Let me undo those are a bit intense and too small. Drop the intensity down, bring the size up a little bit, maybe. Just kind of feel what happens there. It's kind of messy. Let's take the intensity up, the size down now, and what are we going to do? So that kind of works in that area. So if I make the size a bit bigger, yeah, we're going to have to drop the intensity slightly. Maybe up just a little bit now, maybe 6. That's working for me, at least for now. Just be careful. I'm going to do these like in a circular way so they feel a little bit more natural. How they're laid out on there. Circle here and there. Not too much. I don't want to scrub over them multiple times because then they just start messing themselves up. If that makes sense. You can even pull this up a little bit to make these a bit more rough, kind of like heels. I've been walking too long. Kind of get that vibe from this thing. Probably walking on soil. But it doesn't necessarily look like it eats typical food. It probably absorbs, I'm thinking, somehow. I don't know if maybe I need to give it some kind of proboscis or something like that. So I think that's pretty cool. I want to put kind of a skin texture on this as well. So I'm going to go back into the light box here and just kind of look for something kind of subtle. We're going to use some harsher ones up top, but maybe something kind of subtle. This is kind of what I was talking about for the horny toad belly. That's more scale though, so I don't really want that because I like the fact this is kind of skin-like. Let's go into my actual skin, human skin brushes and see what we got. I've got a couple folders or whatever. Let's start with this guy and figure out what kind of skin this is. Nose pores. Let's try just this directional to start with and just kind of get a feel for what that's going to give me. I'm going to go with a little bit smaller and a more intense maybe and see what we're doing here. That's not bad, but I think a little smaller still because this creature is pretty big. And you can start to see some of this more intense detail. I'm going to zoom in slightly. You can kind of see, but for this we're probably going to need to up our resolution even more. So we'll go divide again. It takes a second to catch up with itself, but now when we do it, you'll see this be a lot more refined, and it really starts to give a nice, realistic surface to the whole thing. You don't want to wipe out all those wrinkles you've done before. But this is kind of blending the entire skin in a way together, and it's directional, so you can brush it in the direction you want those things to flow, and it will kind of feel a lot more natural doing that. You can kind of see what I'm doing there. I'm just trying to not destroy my previous work there. And yes, you can put these in layers and freeze those layers out and stuff to where, you know, they're not going to be messed up by it. I sculpt everything in the same layer. I live on the edge like a crazy person. I tend to sculpt everything in the same layer because it's like clay to me, you know. Now when I model, I definitely don't do that. Every piece is a separate piece and so on. But yeah, with sculpting, I just go with it. I do regret that sometimes though, because you get in a place where you're like, really wish, yeah, and then you have to break it apart. And eyeballs I don't do in the same layer, things like that. No, they should be definitely separate. You get a nice crisper edge. Clothing items definitely separate, but I'm talking about like an organic form like this. I don't usually do layers for my skin in here. I will do that for texture painting and all that. Yeah, lots of layers for that. But in here, this usually is like I'm doing it. So I'm just throwing on some texture here. It looks kind of like goose flesh, they call it. We used to call it goose pimples, and then I guess when we skip timelines with the Mandela effect, that nobody calls it that anymore. They also don't say to tell you the truth, or if I'm to tell you the truth, no, what's it say? To be honest. I always said, well, to be honest, you know, I don't really like that. People don't say to be honest, apparently. People say, if I'm honest. I've never heard that my whole life until recently, and I've been told nobody says to be honest. And that's all I remember. Well, to be honest, you know, but people say now, if I'm being honest. So, whatever. If I'm being honest, that's stupid. Okay. Well, to be honest, that's stupid. And that's how I would use it. Okay, so I'm just kind of covering some of this. I'm not being as directional as I probably should be. Let's go directional this way, though, for here. I kind of liked it going the other way, though, now that I think about it, but it's okay. And, yeah, so y'all let me know what you think. Who's still watching, you know, if anybody. I don't know why it's not giving me a count of... it does say 3 are watching right now, but I see it on YouTube, but on my OBS, it's not telling me. It's just a little weird. But what has been normal this week, I wonder? Nothing. Been an odd month, even. We'll see how it all pans out, is what I say. I'm not neutral per se, but man, I'm hopeful this way and that way, even when things are bad or good. I just try to go with the flow until I've been shown I shouldn't. Okay, cool there. It's going to auto-save real quick. And let's get some more of this stuff in there. Looks like I've covered most of it. That's all I'm really concerned with. I can put a few more, you know, smaller detailed areas like this if we want to. Trying not to destroy anything we've worked so hard to keep. Cool. Okay, so with that, I'm going to snap this around and look where we're at. I think that's looking pretty good. The top we haven't really touched yet, but I'm going to put some knobbies and stuff here on the legs. I'm going to turn off symmetry. The big fear of mine is forgetting to turn it back on when I need it. So let's just go grab a brush. I'm just going to see what else is in this light box here. Not in those textures, but in something, maybe in the animal skin stuff, some cracks and nifty things. My cat is up on my mixer being very bad right now, and I'm trying not to get up and scream really loud. Please get down. Come on. Yeah, get down. Get down. Get down. She's something else. So I have other skin brushes there. Let's find, I've got little separate knobbies, teeth, all kinds of stuff I can slap on it, but I think what I'm gonna do is definitely thinking now. Let me see if I've got just some stuff in here. I mean, I can just go do these 100% individual, not worried about it, but if there is something that can work, let's just go and do with a standard brush here. Something like, not that. Where are you? Generally, I don't have to search through because I know exactly what I want, but at the moment, I don't. So I'm just kind of looking for, probably, we're going to go back to my standard clay buildup because that is typically how I would go about this. So I'm just kind of chuck on some little knobbies like so. Bigger, smaller. Make these even a little bit smaller here and there. Don't want to be too ridiculous about it. Just kind of make these random. Some bigger than others, obviously. Some closer together. Some subtle. Draw some a little bit smaller now and kind of just pop a few here and there. And I try to be as random at the placement as I can so they do not look placed. Little distributed, you know, not necessarily horribly evenly, but then I can change my size, and when I put one somewhat closer to that one, it doesn't look like I chose to sort of do that as much. You can see these almost look a little too similar in size. Just drop one right there subtly, zoom out. So once you get to a point where it feels like everything is kind of flowing a bit better, and then I can throw, you know, some random subtle ones in here too. All these will be colored, which is nice because then we get this sort of moldy kind of effect too. Don't be afraid to really lump it up in some places either. Remove this. Cool, so a couple more. I'm gonna make a few larger ones, just like one or two, kind of here, maybe there, maybe one right there. Why not? And the smaller ones tend to look a little better, but I think that works just fine. Smooth out a little bit. Okay, cool. And then now let's start hitting the top piece. So I'm going to frame that out, and hopefully there won't be any more drama going on at my house, because that's kind of rough to do. So you can always drop back like to a different resolution here, so I can kind of come back here and smooth that while it's in low res, and it'll smooth out a lot faster. You can make bigger changes. Granted, that's probably going to make me have to retopologize a good portion of this, because when we go and make bigger changes, if we did, it will change the layout of all of these pieces. So the blobs, you know, and stuff will get a little more stretched and so on. Just kind of come up a little bigger with that. Smooth that, pull that out. And I'm working asymmetrically now, which means I'm probably going to be working asymmetrically for the rest of this, only because things I do that are not symmetrical will not be affected by putting it in like an X symmetry mode, if that makes sense. You might be touching something on one side, but it won't be touching on the other because it's just not there. So I'm just going to smooth a little bit of these out, making it a bit more smoother lumpy. Let's frame this up and swap this down again. And it looks to me like some of this, oh, we are in a lower resolution. That was why. Yeah, so that's looking actually pretty good now. Let's smooth some of that there. And now we can start coming in here, like say with the dance standard or whatever, and kind of, you know, deciding what's happening with this stuff up here. I'm gonna kind of make some weird choices. And I've got this brush really large so that it kind of pushes some of this around smoothly. And, there we go. It's kind of interesting for sure. Let's just come down like this and move stuff around. It kind of tells you what it wants you to do, doesn't it? Sound like Bob Ross, I just realized. It tells you what it wants. I used to have a colorful phrase about art where I said, you know, you shouldn't let it tell you what to do. You're going to tell it what to do. My colorful phrase, though, was probably not meant for most crowds, but yeah. It did involve a B word. I'm telling it to make it yours. Yeah, but not probably the way I would phrase it today. That may be funny, but it's kind of not my style anymore. I don't think anyway. Alright, so jumping some of that up in here, making this kind of stretchy and weird kind of happening. Those belong kind of together. This looks good like that. These have obviously some stretch going on into the distance there. Cool. I'm just kind of looking at the lay of all the stuff happening here and trying to, you know, find lines that kind of come in and follow with that. Then I'll go back and do a whole lot of sculpting to kind of final decide on some of those layout lines. I like the unexpected. I'm not sure if this is that yet, or even anywhere near that, but it probably will be. Okay. Let's frame that up. I have to go back and smooth some of that stuff down. This reminds me of a D&D character, a monster in a monster manual, and I don't remember what it's called. It's not a rust monster, but it's like kind of like looks almost like a little walking brain thing, but I don't remember what they're called. And I do think they could mess with your mind. They're like cerebrally something or other, you know? Very weird things. I like stuff like that, though. So I'm going to go back with probably an inflate brush down a lot of this stuff I'm doing and puff certain areas out. And just kind of looks like it's supposed to have that. Let's see. I don't remember if you guys play D&D, but if any of you do, let me know what that creature is, if you can think of it. I'll have to look it up later, you know. I'm going to absolutely have to, because I'll sit there all night long, and then in the middle of the night I'll suddenly, you know, shout out Kenny Baker, because I remember who played R2-D2 after 3 days of not letting myself look it up because I had to remember on my own. Yeah. Almost caused a divorce back when I was married. Just remember, something like that can cause a divorce. You're with the wrong person. All right. Cool. So I think that's kind of cool. Keep adjusting some of this around. Finding. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to take forever because I made this non-symmetrical. This is going to take forever to work out. So let's just look at that. I think for the moment it's okay. I can work with it at least and move forward. I think it's pretty cool though overall. I can see it walking already, which is nice. I don't think I'm going to give it any gender or organs. I think that probably take away from it, honestly. I'm going to probably come in here with that same... Let's find the one with the knobs first. I think it's this one. Let's see. Yeah, oh no, that's the crusty one. Let's try... where's my knobby? Didn't sound right. Let's go with... Not the membrane, but it's probably this one. And it's not that one either. Where are you? Is it you? Yeah, it's one of them, but it's not. Let's just go back to the light box and I will find it right in here. It's going to be this guy. And let's possibly throw some... That's scales. Never mind. Let's look at that again. It was something knobby. This way comes. It might have been. No, that's the crusty. I don't remember. I thought I pulled it out of here though. I thought I pulled it out of here, and I thought it was that one, but it's not. Let's try this guy because that looks interesting. It's not for that area for sure. Maybe for something like that, but I think that's still, I mean, that is what I used there. That is that one that was perfect for that stuff there, but yeah, pretty cool. I like this actually, extending those down a little. Let's go back in. I'm going to grab that one that I love. We're just going to make this one really large and very not intense. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, now we're talking. This is going to actually save a little time too. So a little more intense. Got to be careful. It's essentially what I was hand sculpting this to look like. So just got to make sure it's not too harsh and keep flowy, not use too much of it either. Follow my lines. Yeah, it's looking all right. Looking all right. Move this over. Glad I used this brush because the right through here it looked like a nose on the side of the head. I thought, it's like, I gotta do something about that. You guys still hanging there? Still out there? A little bit of crossover here and there. May not hurt with this brush. We'll find out. And I'm going to make it small and really subtle. We get some fine wrinklage in there that kind of helps blend stuff together. Right now, these are kind of the drastic bits. Working my way around, probably not as methodically as I should. I'm kind of just doing this as I see it. A more methodical approach would have probably been a little better, but it's still working. Kind of going from one side to the other still at least. Trying not to put too much pressure. That's right now I think the biggest thing I'm going to worry about. Zoom back out here. I like to just step back and look pretty often. I did miss this entire back side. It's really good to just kind of step back and look. Alright, so now we're going to take this smaller, less intense I think, just start fine lining some of this stuff to give this maybe a tiny bit more intense, to kind of give this a little bit of fine line. It might be too much. Let's do it down to 6 or 5. Yeah, that's better. And that will help the soft sagginess of this. It's almost like, I can't say what it's almost like, but you know what I'm saying. Saggy skin. I might go put a little bit of goose pimple kind of on top of this too to max that out. It's pretty gross. I like it. I'm going to use this as a real-illusion creature, but also possibly something I can use, animate, and sell too for Blender or whatever as an FBX file. Rigged, of course. You will have to do what you will with it. Cool, that's coming along well. Get the little auto save, which they fill your hard drive up, but man, I couldn't live without them. Okay, a little in here, a little there, just very subtle. Light passes. My arm gets tired of drawing after a while. It is bedtime for me, honestly. I did not plan to make this stream this long, but at the same time, I wanted to kind of complete a creature, so I picked something kind of what I consider simple to just get something done that I can rig up maybe tomorrow in another live stream. Just gonna make sure I've got some coverage here. Not too hard, not too hard. Gotta keep the pressure just kind of, some weird dotted lines here though. But kind of keep the pressure really light on these. So we just get some kind of swirly, wrinkly stuff happening there. Enough crossovers that, you know, it works. I do love me some ZBrush. It's been a minute since I've sculpted because I've been doing a lot of 2D work lately. Working on hoping, praying about a bid for a job. We'll see how that goes. Could use the cashola, and then there's a lot of potential stuff that will come with it. So I am got my fingers crossed on that front. That in here, and let me pull this back. I don't know how close to done I am because I could add detail all day long on stuff like this. Frame up though and just kind of have an overview. I think it's looking pretty great. Some areas could use a little more crossover wrinkling there. Some of these, because I don't want them to be without at least fine details, textures. But you don't want to overdo detail, because then you get into a mess. And your detail starts to get rid of your other detail, and that is the case for layers, though. You can actually essentially turn off the layers. You're only working on the one above, and your detail will not destroy your geometry if you press too much. But I also can't kind of feel how I'm sculpting it, if that makes sense sometimes. Sounds kind of artsy-fartsy, I guess, but it is the truth. Let's get this nice and sacky. That's the word of the day. A little more here, a little more like so. Just trying to wrinkle that up to where there's no slick spots is what I'm really kind of worried about. Alright, I think that's good for that. Let's go ahead and take a look here. And I'm going to come back in with one brush that we saw earlier. It's like this veiny brush. And I am going to zoom out. Normally I would put this on another layer, probably, even though I don't like to use them if I can help it. And I'm just going to throw some veinage in some appropriate places. Very subtle, possibly in here. In fact, I can up the intensity slightly, get a few that we can see running across one of these roundy parts. It's a good way to put it. Got to make sure I don't have too many coming up here and not in the same direction if I can help it either. It's probably a good one, maybe from here, maybe two conflicting, maybe one small, little bit of sackness there. Maybe these two kind of meet up. I think that's probably good. I almost want to put more wrinklage at the bottom here, but I also don't want to make everything the same. So let's just kind of have a look at this thing. This is the back side, which we could probably do a lot more damage in here. Overall, it's pretty cool. It could have a lot more going on if it really wanted to. This could be kind of the cute version. Yeah, I don't want to do that, but yeah, it's fun. It's gonna flatten that out. Let's not do that either. a little inflating with a smaller brush here and there to lump it up a bit. Like, why are you doing this? Like, I really don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. All right, cool. I think he's done. So, like I said, this is going to be our what would you call it, base mesh here. Don't have to make it the base mesh, but I think it's going to work about as good as a manual base mesh will, as long as we don't get any pinking, you know, the legs up or anything like that. I think it looks pretty good. So what I'm going to wind up doing is exporting this twice from subdivision level 1 here as our base mesh. So this will just export, and this is going to come up on the other screen. You guys won't be seeing this part, but we're going to go to a folder where I keep all of my 3D creatures for sale, and I'm going to, I don't know what I should call this guy, but I'm going to call it Little Brain Guy or something like that. Call that, and then we're going to save it in here, and it's just from a sphere, so it's still called sphere. And if anybody sees this and remembers what those creatures in D&D are that it reminds me of, let me know. Cool, so we've saved it there. Now what I'm going to do is bring this up to the high subdivision level, and I am just going to export it out again. We're going to call this Little Brain Guy, and we're going to say hi. This will be the high res version. I'm going to put high res and then say save, and it will go out the same. Now there's no texture here, there's no UVs, there's none of that. And what we're going to do is go into Substance Painter, I'm going to go into Blender, put UVs on that base mesh, and then we're going to go export it out, go into Substance Painter, and throw this high res mesh there and use that to generate our detail. So it should work. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and save this document out. Let's see. It must be, okay. So I'm just going to, if it's done writing, which it doesn't look like it's, I don't know what it's doing. It might still be writing, possibly. So we're going to save as. This is going to save the tool. And this is just going to be the and this will mean we can bring this back into any ZBrush document in the future. And so I'm going to do a video tomorrow and show you guys probably from bringing it into Blender, checking the topology on it, and then doing the UVs quickly, and then exporting that out to Substance Painter to get the painting on it done. And then yeah, everything should be good to go. Cool. I appreciate you guys watching. Ron, Slothcat, and anybody else who was watching. And cool. We will check this out tomorrow. It's a weird creature, but I think he's got a lot of potential. Very lumpy and bumpy and pretty gross. This I might work on a little more. That's the back end. But overall, pretty interesting. And like I said, tomorrow we will do the UVs, painting, and rig it up. So cool. Talk to you guys later. Thanks again.